The Pythagorean Theorem. The Pythagorean Theorem is used when we are dealing with right triangles. Now there are two types of sides on a right triangle that we deal with. So if this is my right triangle, there's my right angle, and we have side A, side B, and side C. The hypotenuse is the side that is opposite of the right angle. So C is the hypotenuse. The other two sides are called the legs. So side A and side B, the shorter two sides, are the legs. And that's how we break down right triangles. Now, there's a specific formula that we can use to solve these problems, and that is called the Pythagorean Theorem. The Pythagorean Theorem states that in any right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. Now, all this means is we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we can find any of the other parts of the triangle as long as we have two of the parts. So we're going to do some examples around that. For this first example, the tiles in the kitchen are right triangular, with side widths of 6 inches on each of the legs. So this is a leg and this is a leg, 6 inches on each of the legs. And we want to find the length of the hypotenuse. So we'll call that the C, side C. So we're going to start by, we know our equation is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we fill in what we know. So we know a is 6. So I have 6 squared plus my b, which is also 6, squared equals my c squared, which I do not know my c squared. That's what I'm going to find out. Okay, 6 squared is 36 plus 36, which equals my c squared. So that gives me 72 equals c squared. And now if I want to solve, I need to take a square root to get rid of it. Whenever you take a square root, you take plus or minus of both sides. However, the negative doesn't make sense because you can't have a negative length on a side, so I'm not going to have the negative on there. It's just going to be the plus version. So I have c equals the square root of 72, which I'm going to approximate at 8.485, which would round 8.49, and that would be inches. So that would be your final answer. For this next example, we're looking for the length of the hypotenuse of a right triangle with legs 9 centimeters and 12 centimeters. And we're looking for the hypotenuse, the length of the hypotenuse. Okay, so we have my A is my 9 and my B is my 12. It really doesn't matter which is which on that. So I'm going to set up my equation. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, giving me 9 squared plus 12 squared equals my C squared. And this, again, we're looking for C. So 9 squared is 81 plus 12 squared is 144 equals my C squared. That gives me 225 equals my C squared, and I need to solve by taking a square root of both sides. And again, by default, it's going to be the positive version, not the negative version, because you can't have a negative length. So the square root of 225 is 15. So C equals 15. And that's your final answer. Example 3. Given one leg of a right triangle has a length of 5 and a hypotenuse of 13, what is the length of the other leg? So, I know that one of my legs is 5, and I know that my other leg is, my hypotenuse is 13. So that makes A or B equal 5 and C equal to the 13. So in my equation, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, I need to solve this. So that would be 5 squared plus my b squared is my 13 squared. So I'm going to solve, and I get 25 plus my b squared equals 169, 13 squared. Okay, now I'm going to be solving. So I have to subtract 25 from both sides so that I can get the b isolated, leaving me with b squared equals 144. And then I can take the square root of both sides. And again, I know that it has to be the positive because I can't have a negative length. So my final answer is going to be b equals the square root of 144, which is 12. So that would be your final answer. For this last example, we are given that one leg of a right triangle has a length of 12 and the hypotenuse has a length of 15. So my hypotenuse, C, equals 15, and one of my legs, A, equals 12. So I'm looking for my other leg, B. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Put in what I know, 12 squared equals, plus b squared equals my c squared, which is 15 squared. 144 plus my b squared equals 225. And then I can subtract my 144. And I have b squared equals 81. So I have to take the square root of both sides and take the positive version of the square root to get a positive length, and my b is going to be equal to the square root of 81, which is 9, and that would be your final answer. So those are your notes over the Pythagorean Theorem. Make sure you do some of those practice problems so that you can solve these problems for any part of the right triangle, and then you should be ready for your quiz.